that's used in Bangladesh, for instance, and the way it's used in the Middle East. Okay, so there is a whole concern with respectability. Okay, so there's that. So in fact, feminists in Bangladesh certainly don't worry about honor in that sense. How do we? Well, let's see. I think someone like honor. If we come at honor as being patriarchal, then we're going to be in problem. But if you look at honor as an idiom within that gives meaning to social relations, they don't necessarily have to be patriarchal to begin with. So if you look, I'm sure you might have read Laila Abulugod's book Veiled Sentiments, which looks at honor as a positive thing that everybody in this, the tribe of Bedouins or whatever, carries around with them, the women and the men. It's something positive, right, that you have to take seriously, which is a different thing. So honor, I think, I see where your question is coming from, but honor, say, in rural Bangladesh, honor is not a bad thing to have. I think you would want to say, it's the ways in which honor is used can be manipulated, which is a different thing. Honor is part of selfhood, right? So it's part of, so everybody, is part of this honor structure. Men and women both have honor. It's not men have honor, which then or women are the possessors of honor that men then use. But everybody's honor depends on everybody else's honor. So I think, there's a whole larger system in which you have to see honor. My point about the two stories is more about how sexuality and regulation and morality are not addressed in the secular, in the embracing of the secular.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Professor Pamela Price from Oslo, please.
Yeah, I'm glad that you began with this question about honor. But first I want to say that I thought your talk was so interesting for someone who hasn't been working in Bangladeshi history. There are so many ideas that you brought up that we could discuss, I think, for a long time. But on this issue of honor, there is this aspect of honor, which is the dignity that one feels one has or would like to have, and the self-respect that one would like to have about oneself. But also, this whole area of honor is so vast and complex. There are also issues of domination and power relations and different aspects of honor. And it is this kind of, if I may be so bold to suggest, I think a sort of debates about the meaning of honor and issues of power and honor apart from gender relations. I wish there was more of that in scholarship about South Asia in general, because I think it's a very important part of self-critique that one can always have about one's own culture. And in fact, in my own culture in the United States, or to a certain extent in Norway, we can say that status and issues of status are something that we could critique ourselves about.
Right.
Maybe should we take the next question before you comment on this? Yeah. Professor Staffan Lindberg, please.
Okay, thank you very much for a fascinating decomposition of the various political and ideological struggles. I saw the film Television from Bangladesh at the Göteborg Film Festival 2.5 months ago.
Which film?
Television.
Okay.
It's a film from a small town, East Bangladesh, Chittagong somewhere, fishing village, which is run by a patriarch who is owning the fishing industry and the president of the village council, and running the village religious life by being behind the imam and taking the role of the imam. So he combines these three: the economic leadership, the political leadership, and the actual and he is banning television from the village. Nobody is allowed, according to strict Islamic principles, to see these pictures. So nobody is allowed to have a television. And the film is fantastic in showing what's going on behind this power structure in terms of love relationships between girls and boys, including his own son, who is all the time negotiating with his father via the mother for buying a mobile phone, and so. So the film illustrates nicely what you're saying. Islam captured in this web of power relations. My question is, would you say, with the huge significance of the garment industry and that women work in factories, factories revolutionized our societies in terms of new solidarities and modernities. So why shouldn't it reform Bangladesh in a way? So my question is this. By working in the factory and getting autonomy in terms of economy, living, and socializing with fellow workers, do these women represent a break which is then contested by traditional powers, including religion, by caste reinforcement, by and so on? And can you see that women increasingly determine whom they are going to marry?
Thank you, Stefan.
Thank you.
So we will now let Professor Siddiqi answer, and then if we have, I think we will have a short break after your answer, just 5 minutes to stretch your legs, have some fresh air, and so on. So, okay, please.
Just very quickly, yes, I think there should be more scholarship, of course, that looks at honor and power structures. I think, situating it within globalization and status, as you were talking about, within South Asia is something one could look more at. Honor has gone out of fashion, in a sense, I think, looking at honor, partly because the older anthropological studies on honor tended to be very, very functionalist, if you will. This is honor makes things work, and so I think there's an interesting moment to go back. You're absolutely right. This documentary that you saw sounds fascinating, and yes, Shahbagh is precisely.
It's not a documentary; it's a play, a film.
It's a film,
like a novel on film.
A feature film.
A feature film. Okay. Well, Chittagong is the place where the Hifazat Islam is from, the group that I was talking about, and precisely, I think that is exactly the kinds of things they want to do, is ban television watching, whatever. So, as for the garment industry has been there for over 25 years now, right? It represents, in terms of public space, the fact that several 100,000 women go back in and out of the streets every day to back and forth from work, represents a huge break in the gendering of space, of public spaces. Absolutely. Has it revolutionized these women? To a great extent. I have studied the garment industry in great detail. That was what my dissertation was on a very long time ago. But yes, it's the last time I spoke to a garment worker, one of the things she said was, and it was a very random, offhand remark, she said was, the best thing about this is that we don't have to get married if we don't want to, which I've never heard anybody in Bangladesh say from any class, man or woman, because marriage is such a, marriage is so obligatory in South Asia. You're not a fully adult, or you're not even fully human if you're not married in South Asia. So I'm joking, but you know what I mean. Certainly, I think there is a lot more choice in marriage. But again, I would caution about what what kind of break this represents. It's not. The garment industry has made it much more normal for women, I suppose, to be out on the streets in terms of public visibility. Women were always working. Women were always active. Middle-class women were always out there. But we were always in cars. Okay, our lives have been unchanged by this. But for a lot of lower middle class women, I think there's been a lot of changes in that sense. I think garment work it comes with its own set of regulations and its own set of really, I wouldn't say oppressive structures, but it's very problematic. It's not like liberation in that sense, you know? It's just working 12 hours a day, 14 hours a day, non-stop for a different kind of wages and a certain kind of freedom, if you will. But, you know, it's not... I'm not sure it's totally changed all social structures, but nothing can, I don't think, you know. It's not, we're not having the equivalent of an industrial revolution. I think at times it's a very different time. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you.
Before the break, I will also take the opportunity to welcome Mr. Dina, counselor at the Indian Embassy, who has now joined us. And a very short break, if you so wish, or just stretch here in the seminar room.